long jumper, and I only started specializing in long jumping since 18 years old, and before that I've always been a sprinter, and I realized like I have more potential in long jumping, so I switched to long jumping, and it's 6 years of long jumping now, and I was working the national record for 9 times since the
Awesome. So clearly we have a very exciting panel here, and I wanted to start off with a question about navigating limiting expectations for female athletes. So, we hear a lot of narratives about what female athletes are or can be. For example, women are driven by their hormones, or, female athletes get tired more easily and more quickly than male athletes. These are things that we hear, as well as more general standards like women should be married with kids. So we have all of these different storylines floating around, and I just wanted to hear some of your thoughts about, what are your experiences hearing these stories and navigating these storylines, and how have you confronted and navigated these storylines in your athletic careers, and if you're comfortable with your and anyone can start on it with cancer.
Okay, well, I'm 32 this year, not married, so I can ask that. Although I do get asked that a lot, and it gets quite annoying. I'm like, no, I'm not. Yeah. But I would say on the hormones part, I think ladies, not being cheesy, but like we can handle tiredness and pain like better than our male counterparts because we deal with it on a monthly or a bi-monthly basis. I don't know what your cycles are, but we can deal with it. And guys don't understand that. And I was reading this book recently called Invisible Woman, and it's about the gender data gap. And inside it also talks about how there's just missing medical data, but it's always based on guys. The medical research is always based on men predominantly. Because men's hormones are more stable, women have cycles, like no shit. And so that's why we have a lot of side effects when we take drugs from men as well. And it frustrates me that it's 2023 and there's still not that much research in sports performance and hormones. Because I feel like if there was more investigation into like how everyone's cycle would work, then we could also tweak it to our advantage, Like we train for like peaks and troughs, right? So if we and bioengineering to suit us, we could also perform so much better.
Invisible Women is a great book, so check it out. You want to go ahead?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with everything you said. And just to lead on with what you said, I think it's only just in the last few years there's starting to be some more research into the field. And so there is like some body, one of the things that I found really is that there is the beginning of a solid body of research into hormone research. As somebody who is absolutely not an endocrinologist or researcher or anything like that, given that there is information, that is coming out, it is still so difficult to get it into the wider, the wider species. Even as a professional athlete, I was told very, very little about how my body actually works and then how that factors into my training and my training programs and regimes of diet and how fundamental it is for all women. So the lack of generalized information about hormonal action, which I think is so important for any woman, not just women in sport, is a little bit jarring once you start reading about what there is. And there's so much, even like sort of day-to-day demonization of, say, the period as like something that's really inconvenient. I guess I'm on a period, I'm in pain, I'm feeling like crap. But then, for so many years I didn't understand how, actually what was actually going on and how it actually was something that was beneficial, to my bodily function. So once I started reading about that, it was both empowering and yet frustrating because, as an athlete, I would hope that, oh, actually, wow, there's this body information here. I'm not an expert, and someone talk to me about it, and yet there wasn't much of that going on at all. And it's just, there's not that much information, from like I mean, I've had people tell me, once in a while in my professional training that, oh, you need to eat like 1,200 calories a day to cut because insert male athlete here can do it, why can't you? And it wasn't until more recently that I sort of understood, well, I can't actually function like that. Like even if I was lying on the couch for the whole day, I can't function like that. So I think it's hopeful and empowering, I think, as an athlete to know that there is a touch to that, and the narrative is beginning to change, but that still there remains a day-to-day, micro issues with, lack of understanding around hormones. She's just being hormonal, like, or you see your time of the month, and thinking, why is it being, a little bit weaponized, or sort of like said in a reductive way, rather than something that is generally accepted, that is a complex thing for women, that can be both, a tool to, like, in a sense, sort of almost like bioengineer your capabilities and lots of capabilities, but also just sort of accept the difficulties that do come with that, and make that general application for
It's a conversation that needs to happen within and outside of the athletic space.
And I feel like there is a lot of misconception among men on women, because I've just recently posted a reel about it's just a meme, like a guy is jumping everywhere in the house and he's like going like, oh, long jumpers at home, and I just go like, oh, actual long jumpers at home just sleep or just lay on the bed, they do nothing, they don't jump at home, but it's because we're done with jumping during training. So, and then a lot of men or boys actually commented, women. And I was like, what? Actually, there has been research about women are actually more tolerant on high intensity training than men. That's because of the less, smaller absolute force that we create. So we are more tolerant to do reps in the gym, or but maybe at the same RM. So how does that make women weaker? And why would you think that women maybe have no power? And I was like, but I was moving the bar way quicker than my male teammates. So does that make me girls have no power? No, I don't think so. So I just really wanted to bring out that sometimes education is so important that it should be brought out more about women can do a lot of things that men can do, and that we're not weaker per se.
And it sounds like you're showing that on your social media, challenging those misconceptions and making a very good start. So yeah, I did want to then extend a more specific question to Anna. And first of all, you've been rowing for 13 years. And just this year, you also broke three indoor rowing records. Incredible. Thank you. And I know that just earlier you mentioned that there is this misconception that once athletes reach a certain age, that they don't perform as well or not as well as they did before. And I'm wondering how you challenge that expectation or misconception throughout your career and throughout your journey. You could share more about it.
Well, I think I challenge that on a daily basis just by continuing what I'm doing. Because I just go with it. I love what I do, and I won't let age is a number. If I don't feel old, why would I let age determine me as what society thinks, right? And then I also try to lead this by example, because I ago, I had a conversation with my colleague, and I was kind of surprised because she heard I was an athlete, and she was like, oh hey, I hear you do sports, and I'm like, yeah, I do some. and then she was like, okay, cool, so I do sports as well, and I was like, okay, great. And then she was like, so I said, okay, so why did you stop? Oh no, she said, about I stopped recently. So I was like, why did you stop? And then she mentioned that she stopped because she had to change high schools. And then I was very confused because, so I'm 32. We're in the same company, and she's saying she stopped for the high school. So then I was like, I'm sorry, how old are you? And then she just goes, what? And then I was like, oh, maybe she didn't hear me. So then I said, well, I don't know, are you like under 30, over 30? And then she was like, I can't believe you asked me that. What kind of question is that? And then like immediately was on her phone, and then I found out like after lunch, she was texting our mutual colleague to complain about me, about how rude I was, and I was like, girl, you just said you stopped at high school. I have no idea how old you are. Because she was one of those like really pretty Asians with makeup, like she could be 22 or like 40, I have no idea. Asian generation? Yeah, honestly, I had no idea, and I still don't know how old she is, but I don't care, I just want it for context. Sorry, so like to lead by example, I was like, okay, I apologize, but I said, I'm sorry if I offended you, but in my sport, for rowing, we actually race based on age categories. I think it's similar, like boxing can be on weight, so rowing is on weight and age. So the whole community is really close. Like, if you're 35, you're in this category, if you're 40, you're in this category. If we race together, our average age becomes another category. So it's really age based. Like everyone is very open on age. And so by leading by example, so like for that indoor competition last month, I really spent like the whole year training really, really hard. So I was like, okay, I don't want to let my 30-year-old, ladies on me down. And yeah, so I was really happy that we ended. Actually, my competitor broke the record overall at the same time. So she trained really hard as well. We're on the same team. Yeah, so I was really proud that we could both do it, even past 30. And it was like, society said we're old, but like we're not old. Like Serena Williams won a Grand Slam pretty much pregnant at like 36 or something. Yeah, that's amazing. That's what we should focus on.
Exactly. Like, there's a Filipino competitor that I met back in like 2018, 2019. She actually like broke her own personal best record at the age of 36 and made it to the Rio Olympics. So age is really not the limit. Like 30 is not where you should just cut off.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's awesome. It sounds like you've really been challenging it in your daily life as well as in your career, and it's really inspiring.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and I wanted to then move on to hear a little bit about the life changes and career changes you've gone through. So recently, you've gone through a bit of a change in your career. So you switched to double-handed racing, the double-handed racing class full-time at the Hong Kong Sports Institute at the onset of COVID after 8 years of racing in single-handed classes. I'm not really sure what that means, but that's really like a really big shift, and it sounds like a lot. So I just wanted to hear a little bit more about how you navigated that change in your career and how that's impacted your business itself as well.
So to give a little bit of context, so single-handed means you sail alone in a boat by yourself, and double-handed is when one person. So the years I spent as a single-hander is from like right in the beginning as a kid when I started to learn how to sail dinghies myself, and I went through a very typical sort of sailor progression. And you start at like club racing, like club sailing, then club racing, and then you move through like some of the junior racing divisions, and then eventually you build into an Olympic discipline. Doesn't necessarily mean you've gone to the Olympics, but there's a number of particular types of boats that are Olympic disciplines. So I did that for quite a few years as well, and so at the beginning of COVID, because it impacted everybody in this room, everyone around the world just as much, and I'm sure everybody's had experiences like this. For a long time I was self-funding, or my family at least was funding me, which is another good point because I was very lucky to have the capital, the human and the financial capital to continue self-funding because sailing is an expensive sport. and it does lock people out of it because of that. But anyway, so for a few years I was able to race at a senior level through family funding, but then at the beginning of COVID and right before an Olympic trial was meant to happen, everything got pushed back and delayed indefinitely until people understood what was happening. So at the time I was like, well, we're kind of running out of money. I don't know if I can even continue for another year until the rescheduled trials in this class. I was like, well, what am I going to do? But I was very lucky actually that the sports institute got back in touch with me, and they asked me if I was interested again in switching to a new discipline. And so that meant moving from the single-handed sailing into double-handed sailing with another person, which I'd never done before. And this was, quite quickly I moved in and went full-time. So that was a big transition, even just in terms of team dynamics and learning to sail with another person and make both physical and tactical decisions with another person. And it was also, I think, one of the things about accepting change was having to at the same time sort of have to accept not knowing what the outcome of the Olympic trials would have been had I been able to continue in the previous class that I'd worked on for so long. And obviously I still don't know, and I'll never know. And it's important to stay in touch with, I think, the bigger picture to sort of come to an acceptance of that sort of change. Like one door closes, but another one opened up. And again, I was lucky to be able to move into something that was as good as what I was having to leave behind, and still with some of the same people that I'd been sailing with. And then I did 3 years double-handed until a few months ago. And letting go of that also was another interesting and challenging change, because I was sort of having to reconstruct myself, moving away from full-time sport and then into, I wasn't sure for a while what I was going to do, and I've settled on going back to uni, so I'm going to sort of readjust to being a student, hopefully very soon. And also having those, unanswered questions, which is tough and it takes time. And, even throughout this whole experience as a full-time athlete, I think all full-time athletes would have had this experience. You have all of these, doubts in the moment as well. And especially if you're in an Olympic discipline, it's, it's so specialized. And then for me, at least, it was easy to get into a very narrow field of view because this was very much your whole world. And then suddenly not being in that zone, and then things that you thought would happen 3 months from now were suddenly not going to happen completely, was a big thing to go through, and that can also exacerbate the doubts you already had. But I was lucky to once I was sort of out of that space, keeping in touch with people I really care about was important, as anyone does. Because they help keep you grounded and keep you in the bigger picture, actually how sort of big and wonderful the world is and how much opportunity there is, even if you have to sort of close the door on one thing, at least for the time being. So I think it was sort of reconnecting with the sport without being a professional and without training every single day and without knowing that, okay, I have this target event then. That sort of kept me grounded and sort of reconnected me with how much I love the sport. And it's uncertain as to how progressive the sport is, but I think I've remembered what I love about it and the good things that it's given me as a developing person, rather than some of the anxieties that I experienced through professional sailing as well.
I think a lot of people can resonate with how COVID introduced a lot of identity shifts. There are lots of industries that had to kind of stop in their tracks, and so I think that's a really relatable story. And also really admire how you reached out. Also, I think social support is so important when things are uncertain, and it sounds like you really did that. So that's really awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Molly. Okay, so wanted to move on to Tiffany, and just wanted to share some really cool things about Tiffany as well. So Tiffany spent most of her life training for her career in athletics, She's 25 and she spent 20 years of her life in trade. She's also achieved very impressive things in her time in her career. So she broke the national record 9 times since 2018. She's also a medalist in the Asian Championships and the Grand Prix. And so, Tiffany is very passionate about, and I'm sure she'll share more with us about, just how challenging it is to be an Asian athlete and to navigate the field, the sporting career as well. So I'm wondering whether you could share a little bit about those limitations, practical barriers that we've already kind of talked about earlier. Share your experiences with that.
Sure. So, as everybody would know, that track and field is a really, really big and traditional sports in the sports industry, because it's one of the oldest sports where it's pure speed, height, distance, and everything that made this traditional sports a really, really big field to be competing in, and everybody knows that. Such as maybe in sprints, the black is very dominant in this sports. You might see in the Olympics finals, it's all black. Maybe just one. There was one yellow this year, and it's Chinese Subin Kim in the men's hundreds, and it's really, really rare for us to see somebody who is not black inside the race, and it is very hard for Asian athletes to make it into the Olympics or World Championships. It's because, first of all, it's a very big field. Lots and lots of athletes from around the world would compete for those so little sports for World Champs or Olympics for reasons of the organizers. So, for example, in the field events, in these World Championships, they only have 32 spots for field events. Each field event's got 32 spots. And how many people would be competing? Thousands and millions. And there's just so many who would be competing, and especially in maybe in track and field, with European and American countries, they have a lot better supporting systems for the athletes, which is not available in Asia. So making it very, very hard for Asian athletes to make it to the World Champs or even Olympics. So maybe usually you would only see 1 or 2 Asian athletes who actually made it just to qualify for it. They may not even be the finalists. So it is very difficult to try and get the support we needed, because, for example, in Europe or in America, most of the track and field athletes are getting competitions every weekend. But in Hong Kong, for senior athletes, above 20,
Wow.
we call them seniors. So it's from January to May, 1 competition per month. And that's it. That's the end of the season. And we'll be like, what? People are getting 5 competitions in 5 weeks, or even 1 month, but we're getting in a total for a year, and the rest you're just if you make it to the Asian Champs, maybe 1 or 2 more, but then that's a lot less compared to if you make it, if you're in the European countries or America. So the competition opportunity makes a huge difference if we are not able to get the fundings and go out. Yeah, so it's really...
Could I just add on the funding part?
Absolutely.
So funding for, Tiff said, for Asians, it's so hard in sports already. In similar in rowing, I don't know if you guys know how the Olympic tickets work, but basically there's like, if you're at a world championship or a World Cup, it's like the top 10 countries can then get in on the rowing side. And then apart from that, then every country then gets like one more ticket. And so for the whole of Asia, it's like one ticket. And then everyone's fighting for like that one ticket to get in. And so that's the hard part already. And then the second part is funding. Like Asia in general just really doesn't have the funding. But China is a very good example, I think. So in rowing, China changed its head coach to a guy called Sir Steve Redgrave, who is like the only guy from UK who won 5 gold medals for rowing. It's so hard, like to gold medal, like every Olympics, he won 5 in 5 successive Olympics. Gold. So how old? He was like early 40 when he won his last gold, which is like unheard of sorry, besides the point. Hey, so they hired him as the head coach for the women's team in China. They poured in so much funding, and then suddenly all the medals came at the Olympics as well. Like it really, if you have the right coaching and funding, you can reap the rewards. And so we just really need to push for that, like in Hong Kong and yeah. So just wanted to add that it does work if you have the funding and the right coaching.
Yeah.
Just wanted to one last point. Yeah, just the underrepresentation of Asian competitors is also the same in sailing. That happens a lot, and you know, not just in Olympic sport where there is, you know, a requirement for, you know, there are a certain number of tickets for each continent as well. But then as soon as you look beyond like Olympic sailing, you go into like ocean racing or like, you know, high performance big boat sailing. You know, that's not regulated by, you know, Olympic committees or anything like that. Then the underrepresentation of Asians, and particularly Asian women, is insane. Like there are so few, if any, involved. So yeah, just to highlight, it's a lot of sports.
Definitely. It sounds like across the board there is that issue, and it would be really helpful to have more funding or support also for, you know. So, do you want to add something to round us up with this question, Tay?
I just think that it's generally very hard for Asian women athletes to be a full-time athlete because of all the cultural things that first panel mentions, like the body image and being petite and maybe have fair skin that stops people from going to outdoor sports, and they just want to have the fair skin and doesn't look buff, and they would be, or maybe parents would be like, how are you sporting? Why aren't you studying? You're an Asian. You need to get an A in academics. You're not Asian. So B for below average, right? But I feel like it's just, yeah, being an athlete is already hard enough. Just hoping that like people could not make it even harder for athletes to be athletes.
Yeah, in our cultural environment, sometimes it can be even harder. So, thanks for sharing that tip. So, we are going to have to round up our discussion, but as we round up, I wanted to ask all of you what you would say to younger versions of yourselves, going through a time of challenge and change. So, wisdom, words of wisdom from each of you. Want to start, Anna? Yeah.
To my younger self?
To your younger self.
I guess I would tell her that it just takes time and it will get better.
I love that.
But I say that because when I started doing sports actually when I was 20, so it's quite late. So you're 25 and done it for 20 years. But I started when I was 20, and so it was really hard. Like for our land training, the sports round, 400 meters, we have to do 10 laps. I guess that's easy for you.
No.
Okay. Well, I did like we would have to do 10. I did 2, and I'm like, I can't, guys. I'm walking. And it was really hard because like everyone else who had been rowing for a long time, that they were so fit, and I was like, my God. And then there was also this kind of pressure on me because everyone knew I was Eurasian. So they were kind of like, well, you're half white. You should be like fitter than this. And I'd be like, yeah, but like, I have not done anything before in my life either. It's like, this is, anyways, also that, like, I was like, what does that mean? Anyway, it took some time, and now I can run 10 laps or more sure. So I would just remind her, it just takes time, it will get better. If you put the time in, the rewards will come.
Words of wisdom indeed.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, Molly?
I would say to her, just proceed with your values.
Proceed with your values.
Proceed with your values. You won't need to be so scared. Yeah, you'll be fine. Like don't be afraid to say no sometimes, and no need to change who you are, sacrifice your values for some kind of higher social narrative.
Yeah, leading with love and according to your values. I love that. Thanks. All right, Tiff, rounding this up.
I would say like just believe in yourself and believe in your body, because your body is yours and not others. So even if like there was times of myself being insecure about my own body, but you have to remember that your body is this way so that you are achieving what you are achieving.
Incredible things.
Yeah. So like it's because the way I am built, the body that I am in right now, that's helping me run fast and jump far. I won't be able to do any of that if I have chopstick legs or like no calf muscles. So just believe in yourself and love yourself just the way you are.
That's an amazing message, and I think we've had some really great insights today. If you came to our previous panel, I think all of the themes are tying together. Enjoy the diversity of the bodies around you, appreciate yours, and follow your values and like go along the journey, lead with love. So I think that's a really nice way to round up our discussion today. And thank you also for being a great audience, so warm and welcoming also.